I'm Miwa Messer. I'm the producer and host of Poured Over. And Maris Kreizman, when did I meet? We met in like 2011, 2012. When did we meet?
2012.
Okay, 2012.
2012.
So you were working at bn.com and you said, hey, you person who runs the Discover Great New Writers program, I think I'd like to read for you. And I said, hey, who are you? And at the time, you were doing this very funny blog called Slaughterhouse 90210. And I will say I'm a little past my prime for 90210. I understand the cultural reference, right? Like, but I was not a watcher of the original show. I was not a watcher of the reboot. Like, and of course, Kurt Vonnegut, I am part of that whole generation of readers that came up through that. But before we get to the book, before we get to your first book,
Yeah.
we gotta start with the blog because this is like golden age of blog moment. This is you getting your, like, I remember watching
Nostalgia.
you do the whole thing.
Ooh.
This is not bad nostalgia. This is fun nostalgia. There's bad
Yes,
nostalgia
correct. Yeah. Thank you for specifying.
too. So let's
Uh-huh.
no go back to Slaughterhouse 90210 for a second. I miss those days.
I miss Tumblr so much. Um, let's not talk about how much I miss it. Slaughterhouse 90210 was the first time I really put social media to use, like
Right.
I ever really started doing something. And basically what happened was a friend said you should start a Tumblr of
Mhm.
literary quotes because
Right.
you have so many. And I said, well, that sounds boring. And so then I tried to figure out, but what could make it more fun? And the answer was a picture of Joan Holloway on top of that quote from Mad Men.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Slaughterhouse 90210 was born. And for 7 years,
Something like yeah.
every single day, I would
Mm-hmm.
wake up and find a quote from literature. It could be, your favorite dead authors, but also the ones I was reading just at the
Mm-hmm.
moment.
Yep.
And that became more and more important to me. And combine them with a still from a television show. And that was a really fun way to comment on books and culture and kind of show that everything is connected, that books aren't far afield from all the other things that we love.
It was also a kind of moment too where it was a little bit of a golden age, right? Like we had The Wire, we had Mad Men, we
Breaking
had
Bad.
Deadwood. I have issues with Breaking Bad, but we will come back to that. I might be the only person, but I was like, I basically I made it to the first episode of the second season and then I pieced out. And if you've seen it, you might understand exactly where I pieced out. But
And
um,
this is a terrible thing to say, and I would
mhm,
never say this about books,
right,
but if you get through the first season and those
right.
first couple of that's when it starts getting. I
Um,
know it might not be worth your time, and that's okay
Well,
too.
here's the thing. So I think anyone who knows me in real life knows I have terrible taste in all things visual. I mean, I've seen Battleship multiple times, and I think of it as the Rihanna movie. I have seen, anything Jason Statham has ever made,
He's made
including the
a
ones
bunch
with
of
the
good
giant
ones.
shark. Yeah, all of it.
Very good.
So the reality is for me, for the most part, when I'm watching something on a screen outside of The Wire and outside of sort of the early seasons of Homicide, which I've been rewatching and then had to stop because the 90s we were barbarians.
Yeah.
Um, I have to shut my brain off when I'm staring at a screen. I just need ridiculousness. I mean, I have seen multiple versions of multiple Fast and the Furious movies, and I will totally own that. I will totally own it. I should be more ashamed than I am. But I have endless capacity for beautiful sentences, and maybe stuff doesn't happen on the page. Like that's where I let my brain run. But I'm not
I
quite at
I
the reality TV set of things yet, but
will get you there. No, I one of the things that I love is
hmm
when a novel comes out and it's maybe a little bit more popular than something I would pick up for myself.
right.
But then there's a TV adaptation
hmm
starring all the fancy actors and
hmm
actresses,
hmm
and it becomes you're like, oh yeah, this was really important and meaningful the whole time, and
Right.
I would have missed it had I not watched.
I need to talk about the title of I Want to Burn This
Yes.
Place Down. Your first book is out. And it comes back to, of course, Joan and Mad Men, which I made it through a couple of seasons, and then again I had to call Uncle. But that's an entirely different reason, and I'll explain that to you offline. That's not for here. But I do love the title. I love
Thank
the
you.
inspiration of the title. It's very you, but let's start there, and then we'll get into the book.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, so the title does come from Mad Men.
Hmm.
It's from the final season. So we've already seen Joan and Peggy working, clawing their way up the corporate ladder
Hmm.
and really learning the business better than many of the gentlemen they work with.
Hmm.
And then new owners are brought in for the ad agency, and I will not remember what the agency was called by
I
then.
can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember.
And so they have a meeting with these new corporate overlords. And not only did they not listen when Joan and Peggy tried to explain what was happening on the ground, but then they had to, it was Mad Men, right? So they
Hmm.
had to make comments about their breasts. Like that, obviously, that was going to come. And after the meeting, they get in an elevator, and Peggy says, "Should we get lunch?" Trying to play along that everything's just
Hmm.
fine. And Joan says, "I want to burn this place down." And she's the one who always played along,
Hmm.
who really played the game and knew that she just had to keep her head down. And this was the moment when she said, "Enough, enough."
We get your character arc, and I want to burn this place down. And I say this as
Yes.
a person who's known you for over a decade, but we see the evolution of Maris not just as a literary critic and having worked book adjacent jobs for what I really love the way you describe that. I'm like, well, yeah, book adjacent. Okay. Um, but we really do get you from the time that you're a tiny person. And I suppose we could describe the book as a collection of essays. I would argue that it's a memoir. It's a
Yeah.
coming of age.
Yeah.
I know some of bits and bobs I have read elsewhere first, but everything's been reworked. This is a thing that stands on its own. So how does it feel, book adjacent person? Book adjacent, come on. How does it feel to have the book out in the world and handing it off and having people sit with you for more than the length of a magazine piece?
It feels wild. And, I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the places where we see each other a lot is we go to author lunches and
Mm-hmm.
author drinks,
Mm-hmm.
um, where we gather with a group of people who cover books for a
Yeah.
living, freelance or full time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been such a part of that group for so long that it felt incredible to like turn to everybody I was sitting with at lunch and say like, "Oh, now you have read me."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's amazing. I have a newsletter now where every week I try to let people know about newly published books. And that in itself is such a great reminder
Mm-hmm.
that being an author in today's world is really, really tough. You've got a couple of weeks maybe to sell that book when it comes out, and then the next crop just keeps on coming. And as a reader, that is thrilling. That is so exciting to me that there's always something new that I want
Mm-hmm.
to read. As an author,
Okay, I'm going to throw in one more perspective because as a bookseller, that 2 week period, sometimes it matters more for certain things than it does for
mhm,
others. I mean,
mhm,
I have been arguing for ages now that physical discovery actually is coming back in ways, and not just because of, the resurgence in reading or like there are a million different things happening, but there is no greater pleasure, at least to my way of thinking, and this is probably part of why I'm a bookseller, is being able to walk into a space and see everything
yeah,
sort of laid out in front of you, because there, even in my own stores, right, there's stuff that's new to me, and
yeah,
sometimes it can be 50 years old, and sometimes, well, okay, maybe not so much the 50 years, but just that joy of discovery, right? And the serendipity. And we used to have that with newspapers and magazines in a way that we don't
yes,
now with social media. Like you could flip through Vanity Fair, Vogue, whatever. And I'm just using them as examples, but you would see writers mixed in, right? Or you would see an excerpt from a novel and you're like, oh, Esquire doesn't even have a books editor anymore. And when you think of the legacy of Esquire in American literature,
Absolutely.
I'm just like, that's really weird and wrong, but okay. The New Yorker obviously is still doing amazing work, but I'm just talking about general interest magazines, right? You could just flip through anything and be like, oh, there are 17 pages of books that I want to read,
Yeah,
depending on what
yeah.
the magazine is. Or the newspaper, same thing. You could just be flipping through and there's a profile of a writer in a section of the paper that you're not expecting. And it's like, oh, huh? Oh, okay.
And I'll
The
tell you, as a
mhm,
freelance critic,
right.
um, it's been heartbreaking to see
Yeah.
all of those book sections disappear. Um,
It's also the AP Wire too. There used to be a book review editor years ago at the Orlando Sentinel, and if she liked something, she would just throw it on the AP Wire, and you'd have 150 hits in like an
right.
hour, just because the wire and the AP has changed the way it covers books. And I'm all for seeing bookstagrammers, and TikTok is part of the world, and it's listen, whatever brings more people to books, I'm absolutely delighted to see as many faces as I can see. I do think, though, that there's a place for lots of different points of view. And I see a lot of really similar looking coverage across different socials. And it's partially the algorithm. Did
Yeah,
you read the Kyle
100%.
Chayka Filterworld book?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Love that dude. But, everything's sort of getting flat
Mhm.
and you can walk into a restaurant in Boise, Idaho, and feel like you're in Brooklyn because everyone's using the same Edison bulbs and the same sort of, rescued wood from old barns kind of thing. And it's like, oh,
One of the things that I was so surprised by was when I first learned that cover design
mm-hmm,
now is made for the thumbnail,
mm, mm.
is made for what reads well in a small little rectangle.
Yeah, there's that. I still
But
recommend a giant pile on a table.
just even just the tactile nature of it,
Yeah.
like when we talk about like um do you read digitally or
Mhm.
physically? And I will do either one, but
Same.
if I read a physical book,
Mm,
I am more likely to remember it.
yeah.
And it's more likely to evoke certain feelings when I see it.
Hmm.
And that's really important to me, as you can tell from
Oh, I
our
know.
backgrounds are
I mean,
fairly.
hi. Part of it too for me is when I'm prepping for the show, I really do need paper. I can re-listen to audio
Yes.
when I've read something sort of if I've read something before. I mean, I've used Patrick Radden Keefe as an example, but Empire of Pain actually is a book that I've read multiple times, but at the same time, it was like I'm prepping for the interview, but I'm listening to the audio because I'm like, he's so much closer to the material and he's so calm as he's reading it. This is actually delightful considering the subject. Um,
Audio has really also changed how
yeah.
I take in books.
It's hugely helpful. I am a fan. I prefer nonfiction when I'm listening to audio, to be perfectly honest, because I get a little dreamy if I'm listening to fiction and I don't like to lose my place per se. But nonfiction, I sort of key in harder. But I mean, read however you're going to read, just read.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah,
the
absolutely.
whole audiobook, ebook, and yeah, do I prefer to not read on a screen? Yes, I spend half my life, working off of screens, and there's a joy that comes to holding a thing, right? Like sometimes I just like the objet, right? Book
Yeah,
is objet, book is
absolutely.
designed. Like sometimes when the jacket is really good and you're just like, oh, this is a beautiful thing that I would like to
To
be
hold.
around.
Yeah, yeah.
But again, it is ultimately about the words on the page, and you have been working in and around words on the page in lots of different formats, in lots of
Yeah,
different ways, for lots of
yeah.
different places. And so all of that experience comes into I Want to Burn This Place Down, which, if I remember correctly, started more as a book about ambition, like a
You're right.
sort of a classic kind of women and ambition kind of thing. And so, how did that evolution start? Because I mean, I still love this book, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, I'm like, huh, I remember you telling me about a different project.
Yeah. During lockdown
Mm-hmm.
in 2020,
Mm-hmm.
I wrote an essay for the website Gen, GEN,
Mm-hmm.
RIP, GEN.
Ugh,
You know,
so many RIPs.
so many
So many
RIPs.
RIPs.
And it was about how I had lost my ambition partly because I didn't know what I could even aspire to anymore, especially during lockdown when we were all stuck at home
Mhm,
and trying to imagine what a future would
mhm.
be like for me in books.
But it really did
And
start with work, right? Like, I mean,
it
it
really did.
wasn't just an aspirate, like, it wasn't the rest of your life. It was
No, the
that
next
piece of it.
job,
Yeah.
the next thing.
Mhm,
And so I started off with that. And then became clear after writing a few essays that what I was really writing about was my ambitions have changed rather than fallen away. And you know, I was raised as a bootstraps kind of gal.
mhm,
Hard work is meant to pay off, and if you keep your head down and do it, you will reap the rewards.
mhm,
And my past 20 years working in media has kind of soured me on that idea.
mhm,
And yet I have so many things that I love and want to fight for,
mhm.
and books are one of those things.
I mean, watching the evolution too, like, I remember when you had the podcast
Yeah.
and you were doing 1 episode a week, which is still a lift. Like, we do a little more, but, we have lots of folks it's not just me, so it makes it easier to put out 3 episodes a week, but we're now at 500 plus episodes, and I think we turned 4. I think we were turned 4 in I should know this. I think we
Happy
turned
birthday.
4 in June. And I think we're close to 600 episodes at this point. But like, you're one woman trying to cover all of this stuff, do great interviews. I mean, yes, you had an editor and the tech piece is there, but you're still building a thing. And then when did you transition to the newsletter from the podcast? I should know this too.
Um, about a year ago, year and
Okay.
a half
Wait,
ago.
it wasn't longer ago?
No,
Oh,
no.
wow. Okay.
And that was when I also transitioned to being a columnist for LitHub rather than
Okay.
doing a podcast for them. And oh, I loved podcasting though. I loved just aside from reading for the Discover program,
Right.
um the podcast was like what I had hoped a career in books would be. Just like all of the best parts. Like you get to
Right.
read the book and then you get to take your questions
Mhm.
to the author. And I loved that.
Were you focused on debuts?
No,
No, it was just who you wanted to sit down with, right? Like, I mean, that's part of the fun is, well, who do I get to talk to or who you repeat with and who, there is only so much time. You can't physically, even when I have, people to do this with me, we can't physically cover everything. It's a
yeah.
lot.
And I always start with a spreadsheet of all the books that are coming out
Mm-hmm.
during the year and have my wish list. And again, there are so many books. There are so many books,
Yeah.
and I'm one person, and I hate that I feel guilty for missing things. It's like, what do you want me, this one person, to do? And yet I feel responsible
Hmm.
for getting the word out about the books that I love.
I think I'm trying to stay away from using the word evangelist because obviously that's taken on new meanings and, not quite the traditional sense of the word. But the idea that you get to do a thing that you love, right? Like, technically not really work. I mean, yeah, I have a job and, but it's not, I wouldn't describe what I do as work. I really wouldn't. I get to ask lots of nosy questions of
Yeah.
people I either know or don't, but I know their work cult.
Yeah.
But it's sharing that enthusiasm, right? Like, I mean, I genuinely believe that there is a book for everyone. And maybe it's not the same book. And there's some genres that I have dipped around in, and I would not consider myself extremely well versed in, but I understand the appeal. I understand the audience. I understand why someone would find that the most thrilling thing. That absolutely, I get all of it. I literally, though, only have so much time, and if I'm reading for the show, I there are a couple of episodes coming up that I'm taping in the fall where they're going to be body of work interviews, and
Oh,
because of
that's
the
a
writers,
lot.
I'm looking at stacks of things where I'm like, okay, this
Yeah,
is going to be great, and I'm totally glad I'm doing this, and I'm really happy that some of these folks
that's
write
an
short.
undertaking. Yeah.
Really
Oh my
happy
God,
some of these folks
I
write
hope it's
short.
not Joyce Carol Oates.
It's a couple of other writers that
Good, good, good.
I've been reading for a really long time, and I'm super stoked about. But at the same time, there's other stuff that I'm reading just to stay on top of what I do, and how I
Yeah.
can communicate with folks that I work with, and understand what readers who might not be me. I mean, listen, I read so that my world gets bigger. I read so that I can get an additional perspective, and sometimes I read just to put context around an idea. I'm always kind of amazed when people are like, "Yeah, reading's really passive. Like you're not really," and I'm like, "Hi."
Oh, I've heard audiobooks are passive, but
No,
I've never heard.
yeah, occasionally when you're out in the world and you're not with people who work in books, I'll get I hate to read. Why would you do that? It seems so boring. And I'm just kind of like, okay. And yet
Yeah.
you can sit in front of a screen and play a first person video game. Let me
Um,
explain how some of this could work.
you know, I think that as someone who loves many, many different forms of entertainment,
Hmm.
I just always want to make sure that books are included in that long list of
I
things.
do not disagree. I mean, here's the thing, they're portable. They're portable. You can do time travel. You can spend time with people who are not your actual family.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
I
listen.
think that there's been a lot of discussion about whether reading makes you more empathetic.
Hmm.
And I don't necessarily think that because A, B happens,
Hmm.
but I do think that books are a good tool if you're curious
Yeah.
to start to understand someone else's perspective.
You also don't have to finish it. You don't have to finish a book you don't love. Life is so short. If you are not loving the thing, or if you're not appreciating, you can put it down. There are so many things that I'm like, I'm good. Thanks. Thank you.
And a nice thing about that, a rule I made for myself,
Hmm.
is that if that happens to me and it's, a work of debut fiction,
Hmm.
I don't even need to tell anyone about
Yep.
it. I can just
Ding,
I can
ding,
just move
ding.
on.
That is correct.
I feel like there's a perception that book critics are constantly looking for angles to like take people down.
Hmm.
And m- for the most part, no. For the
No.
most part, I want to read things that I love so I can then tell you about it.
I think we're all looking for that, to be honest. I know any editor working in the business, like everyone's looking to be wooed, everyone's looking
Yeah,
to fall in
yeah.
love. And that can be narrative nonfiction. That can be fiction that, isn't maybe the easiest read. I mean, you just want to fall in love with the words on the page, right?
Absolutely.
And
For
you just want
sure.
to be able to say, no, no, this is the one, this is the one. I mean, back in the day, so to give a little context to the old Discover program, we picked about 50 titles a year. We did 3 seasons, and a bunch of us would lock ourselves in a room in New York. And then we had folks calling in on the phone. This is pre-Zoom, so we had people yelling out of a phone. It was great. It's kind of like Charlie's Angels, only different. And we'd all be yelling into the phone. And we had quite a good time,
It
because
was
mostly we just sat there and spent an hour saying, this has legs, this doesn't have legs, I am completely madly in love. And sometimes we were really right, and sometimes, wow, we were really wrong.
but just, there are so many other things that you have
Hmm.
to do in a book related job
Right.
aside from reading and evaluating books
Mhm.
and talking about them,
Mhm.
that it just felt so pure to get
Yeah.
into a room with a bunch of other people who were
Mhm.
there for the very same reason. Um, it was so thrilling too when we'd walk into the room in the morning and you'd put new galleys
Yeah.
out on the table.
I had my own V cart. I couldn't get everything down into the office by myself. I mean, that's just the sheer volume of everything we were looking at. And we did have something like, most poetry collections don't have print runs that were large enough to sustain what we were doing. I mean, there were some and some smaller presses where I would have to call and say, no, really, can you actually print the number of copies of books that I need? And that's how Sam Irby's Meaty actually ended up in discuss. You were part of that when that happened. And I just
I
remember thinking,
was, and you
oh, this
said,
is,
"You have to read this book, it's incredible."
uh,
And that was the one that had the old cover of the
with the
chicken.
chicken. And the tiny trim and everything else, but I had to call the then publisher and just be like, can you
And now look at Sam Irby's books, they have a uniform
oh,
style, they're
I'm
beautiful.
so happy when I see them. I am so, so happy when I see them. So, I mean, and R.F. Kuang, Poppy War was something we put in. I mean, Kiese Lehman's Heavy. Um, I should remember, but I think it was ultimately like 1,600 titles that went through. The program ran for about 25 years,
One of the books I remember
28.
was a debut novel
Mhm.
by Catherine Lacey
Oh, yes.
that I just
Yes.
absolutely loved. And sometimes I look at her work now and think like, wow, she's really been doing
Yeah.
it. She has lived out her potential in all the best ways.
Oh, you know what? Cynthia Dupree Sweeney too.
Oh yeah, she has a
Four
new book coming
siblings,
out.
four siblings, one inheritance. What could possibly go wrong? It's just sometimes you gin up a line of copy and you're like, oh yeah, that actually is exactly what this is.
That's also very good.
Um, yeah, I mean the amount of joy I get from bookselling and figuring out how to get someone to fall in love with a thing is it's yeah, nothing else really compares. But back to your book for a second and the evolution of Maris. And so you grew up in New Jersey. So, I mean, listen, the book world is always sort of an arm's length away. You're a library kid too. Like you remember the book that made you a reader?
I would have to start with Ramona the Pest.
Yeah. Okay. I was on the
It was
banks of Plum Creek for me. I was a Laura Ingalls Wilder, like, can I please go dig a sod house in the backyard? But I
I
totally get Ramona.
it was the first, I think it was middle grade,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the first book that wasn't a picture book.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I can't read that. And then I picked it up and was like, oh no, wow, I
Mm-hmm.
really can. I can read books.
Yeah.
And that changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then in later years, I would say Marjorie Morningstar was a big
Oh,
one.
wow. Okay. Okay. Not expecting that. Totally not expecting that. Herman Wouk.
Yeah, yeah. Writing a female character in a way that I found
Mhm.
really relatable, and
Mhm.
I haven't gone back in a while, but it's an epic. It's,
Mhm.
a big chunky book,
Mhm.
and about a young girl, maybe like me, who grows up and lives some of her dreams and then
Mhm.
realizes some of her dreams kind of stink.
So here we are with a book that was written what
Hmm.
in the 40s, 30s or 40s? I mean
I want to say
it's
50s.
50s. Okay. So not yesterday, but feeling really contemporary. Feeling deeply,
There
deeply
you go.
relatable.
Still
Okay, so
applicable.
but this brings me back to, I know Jane Austen speaks to a lot of folks, not me. And that's fine. It's really fine. I mean, there are plenty of books that are inspired sort of by Jane Eyre that I'm fond of. I mean, Charles Dickens, not my first read, but do I like books inspired by Charles Dickens? Absolutely.
I have
I
to
thought The Fraud was a lot of fun. That's Zadie Smith. I quite enjoyed that.
it's very fun. In college,
Mm-hmm.
I took a 19th century British literature course.
Oh,
And
so
that is
Wilkie
where
Collins and Charles Dickens.
no Wilkie
No
Collins.
Wilkie? Oh,
I did that on my own later, but we did
okay.
like the big we did Bleak House, we did
Okay.
Middlemarch, we
Mhm.
did and I'm so glad that I did it
Yeah.
because I don't know if I would pick up Bleak House right now. Although I did read David Copperfield after that, for funs.
Okay.
Um, but I'm so glad that I did it.
Mhm.
Um, just to see where it all comes from. Um, and then, yeah, the best part about any kind of excellent book is when someone copies it in a really wonderful way that changes things.
Although Colm Tóibín's The Master got me to read Henry James finally. And I
Oh.
beyond, beyond the short stuff that you get assigned in school. I did finally read The Bostonians, and I'm good. I think I'm good. But I really hit Tóibín's version of James. I was just like, I need to spend more time with this person. And of course, that's not necessarily the person who's writing The Bostonians, but I'm still glad I did it.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
Though I'll totally admit to having in my youth been one of those people who reads Moby Dick once a year, and now I don't have the time, unfortunately.
I miss for years, my friend Amanda, who now lives in Portland,
Mhm,
would run a Moby Dick readathon.
mhm.
And that was the best way to catch up on your Moby Dick reading. I think it would happened over 3 days, and hundreds of people would read, and it
Yep.
was just such a nice celebration.
Well, it's also community. I mean, that's one of the things we do see. Like you and I are. I mean, are we terminally online? I don't feel like I don't.
You're not.
I am not terminally online, but I feel like I'm spending more time online than.
Well,
Um, but at the same time, there is a sense of community that comes out of that, obviously. But then there's also, you know, there are conversations I now see where the language veers towards ownership more than love or enthusiasm. And listen, criticism belongs in the world. You do not have to have a PhD to be a critic
no
of a
way.
cultural product. Like that is not, I am not arguing that we all sit at a long table and say, well, this is how I feel. Absolutely not that at all. But
Although if you can, it's great.
yeah, if you can, yes, it is very fun when we get to do it, but also we don't record those conversations.
Right.
Um, but I worry when I hear people using sort of the mine I discovered, therefore it might. And I just, not every book is for every person. I get that. But I do believe there is a book for every person. I'm just saying, maybe you haven't found the thing yet. Maybe you haven't, like, there are books that I've gone back to that I loved when I was a teenager, and I'm like, oh, thank you, no. I'm good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you, no. Oh, wow. But I also feel that way about television and movies. I mean, hi, John Hughes. I came up in the era of John
Oh
Hughes.
man, it's
Whoa.
tough. It's tough.
Whoa, I'm good. Thanks.
Mhm.
Y'all can, thanks. No, thank you. Um, but that was pop culture for a really
Yeah.
long time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so you don't have to engage with a thing. You really don't. But don't stop engaging with the rest of it just because you found the one thing that just made your toes curl.
That's a good takeaway from I just I think the more people read, the less singular it will feel
Right?
to find that book that speaks to you, which is a cool thing to me. I think more
Oh
choices.
man, when you find that thing and you're just like, oh yeah, this is the one. I tend to also I like recommendations from other booksellers. I like recommendation but I like weird stuff too. I end up buying a lot of like New York Review of Books classics because someone has said, "Oh, have you ever read?" And I'm like, "Nope, but I'll go find it."
Yep, some of my favorite books that way, and they've done so much good work with publishing short fiction.
Yep.
Um, and it looks good on your
Mhm.
bookshelf, which
Every time I go to clean out the bookcases in the apartment, those never go. They
Yeah.
never, and I am overdue for a little bit of a clean out because
Well, aren't we
I
all?
mean, you know how it goes, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, that's a shelf I don't need to touch.
Exactly.
But it brings me to gateway authors. This is something that you have been talking about for quite some time, and I really love the idea. And if I remember correctly, Kingsolver is one of your gateways, and
Oh
now
yeah.
and I really Demon Copperhead. Woof, fan, fan, fantastic book. Absolutely my favorite of all of her novels. But and again,
Oh.
inspired by Charles Dickens and inspired by David Copperfield, which I have technically finished and retained very little. I will
More
own
than fair. More than fair.
that. But like just the sheer velocity of that book and the stickiness of the voice and all of the things where you're like, oh, I do not want to put this down. I
And for
love the
sure,
idea.
when I was a teenager, I read
Hmm.
the Poisonwood Bible,
Hmm.
and that was my favorite experience that I still get now
Hmm. Yeah.
is the feeling of, oh, I didn't know you could do that in a book.
Yeah. Right. Right. I think it's the best. Who were the other gateway authors that you had?
Margaret Atwood.
Oh yeah, definitely. And especially when you consider what a range of work she does from poetry to speculative fiction to straight up narrative, it's yeah,
Yeah, some of
that woman
her
has
just
range.
she really does. Some of her more realistic fiction is some of my favorite
Mhm.
stuff. Cat's Eye.
Oh yeah. Haven't read it in a while, but yeah, I remember being very attached to that book. Um,
I'm trying to think who else was in that list of
well,
so much of it really was about like what I was picking up when I was a
mhm.
teenager.
I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, Henry Miller. Uh, what? Because I was reading so widely as a teenager. I mean, yeah, honestly, I was reading a lot of Baldwin, a lot of Maxine Hong Kingston, a lot of Toni Morrison, a lot of Amy Tan. Um,
I read a lot of Amy Tan.
but also a ton of John Updike and a ton of John Cheever. The Cheever short stories are still, and I remember discovering Richard Yates and thinking I had found new ground. And of course, not really, but
There was a real Revolutionary Road renaissance.
there
Like,
was totally 90s. It was, I think it was honestly right after he died.
oh, that
I
might
think
be
he
it.
died in the early 90s, and suddenly, because Vintage had been putting stuff out with those pastelly, not the
Yeah.
Miami Vice covers, but they had a moment where they were using illustrations, but they were all very pastelly, and it was kind of like, hmm. But Easter Parade and Revolutionary Road, I think, were the two that were, and 11 Kinds of Loneliness.
Oh,
Um,
that I haven't gotten
it's
around to.
short stories. It's terrific, but then, of course, I have no idea where my copy went, and well,
Oh, I
these
might
things
try
happen.
one
I mean,
day.
that's actually kind of the fun of having books on the shelf, right? You pass it off to someone else and you're like, maybe it comes back, maybe it doesn't. And maybe someone gets to say, oh, right, this is the one. But yeah, I read a ton of Updike. And also, the dude had a book like at least once a year, if not twice.
Sure. Right, 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 right.
And I just, you know, uh, so much Updike.
I have I have I am I have not read any Updike, I'm gonna say.
I think he's of a moment. I'm really curious to see how the rabbit books age. I sort of read them as a handbook to people in my immediate orbit, trying to figure some stuff out. But I think ultimately, probably Beck and the rabbit novels are going to be the ones. I don't really see the Witches of Eastwick being the thing that carries on, or Centaur. Like,
I
there's some
loved
stuff I'm like,
that movie though.
does it hold up? I haven't seen it in a million years.
I don't know. And I guess Death Becomes Her is getting a whole reboot. And for a second, I was like, is that Witches of Eastwick? No. Whole totally different thing.
Hmm. Hmm. But this whole conversation is just making me think about how books weave through so much of pop culture, so much, Catch 22. Yeah, it's a cliche now, but it really did start as a book title. I mean, or remember when everyone read Vonnegut? Like just men and women, everyone, like old people, young people, everyone read Vonnegut, and new Vonnegut was like, my dad would hand off his Vonnegut mass markets to me, and I would be like, oh, Vonnegut. And some of them were not consistently great.
No, but the
A
ones
lot
that
of
were
them were
great.
consistent. The ones that were great are like spectacular. And some of them I was like, huh. But then I would toddle off and, go talk to my dad about the book that I had just read. And being able to talk about ideas that were unfamiliar or ideas that I thought I really understood, which, when you're 15, what do you actually know? Um, but I really do look at all of that really fondly, or like being able to talk to my cousins about stuff and being like, well, what do you think? Being at the beach and being like, yeah, is Owen Meany really John Irving's best book?
Oh, I
Yeah.
wish I was having those conversations.
Um, Listen, I
I
really
love
like
it.
my cousins. What can I say? Um, but I think books can be so much a part of like interesting, fun stuff, even if you don't necessarily agree with what's
Yeah,
happening in the pages.
absolutely.
Um, you also recently have read a couple of books that I love, which I
Yeah.
can pick your brain on. Katie Kitamura's Audition, and
Oh,
also Great Black Hope by Rob Franklin. I mean,
yeah.
there's been a lot of really good publishing this year, without a doubt. Um, but I like reading my Maris newsletter when it
Oh,
comes, and I always giggle a little bit when I see that there's overlap between, because sometimes our taste doesn't perfectly align. I mean, we're
yeah,
both
of course.
reading prodigiously, but our taste doesn't always overlap. But I always appreciate your enthusiasm. But I was like, oh, well, here we go. Here are two of many where it was like, oh yeah, because I think you're also reading for language the way I read for language.
I think that's right. I
I
think
need
that's right.
language first, and it's like if stuff happens, cool,
Yeah,
but
but
I
I don't need
really
stuff to
need
happen.
language, right? And there are folks who are
Um,
like, what do you mean stuff doesn't happen? I'm like, no, it's just sometimes you just need the language.
and Katie Kitamura is a particular favorite of mine because she messes with narrative structure in a
Hmm.
way that, I think isn't the most comfortable
Yeah.
reading experience. I like that she
Hmm.
jars me.
Hmm.
And I also understand that that's not everyone's cup of tea, but her book A Separation that came out,
Love.
it's really it's so incredible because it's a murder mystery where
Hmm.
you figure out what happened like halfway through, and then you have to be like, okay, so then what?
Yeah. And then
And
we get the so then what?
the so
Um,
then what is devastating. And yeah, the Rob Franklin, like, this is a summer read. This is
uh-huh.
exactly what
Hmm.
I want to
Hmm.
be reading in the summer.
Hmm.
Um, it's so smart, and the descriptions are so wonderful. Um,
It's
I
voicey. It's really voicey. And that to me is always,
love
comes
a
back to the
voice.
language, right? And I just,
Yeah, I think I said I'd seen so many books compare it to Bright Lights, Big City.
mhm,
And that is one that I read Bright Lights, Big City when I moved to New York City.
mhm,
I was ready. Um, and I think it's so cool
yeah.
that this time the narrator in a Bright Lights, Big City kind of book
Hmm.
just is queer and black, and
Yeah.
what happens when you're an observer, but you also have different life experiences. I think that's
And I reread Bright Lights when I was prepping for my interview with Rob, and I was like,
yeah, what do you think?
that book holds up. That book absolutely holds up. And I was expecting kind of lots of dated 80s stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, uh-uh. Uh-uh. It is
Oh, maybe I'll
so
go
it
back.
it is I snuck it into my dude's bag when we went on vacation. I'm like, here. I know you have not read this book in a really long time. And
Yeah.
he tore through it. It's just the voice is so, and but I also like, and it's not something you can do a lot of, but that second person intimate narrative, like Mohsen Hamid does it in How to Get Filthy
Yes.
Rich in Rising Asia. Like it's really like this should be deployed infrequently, but when it's done
I
well,
do
it's
feel like
spectacular.
there was a moment when it was a trend, like something
Oh, and it was
was
not
going
good.
on,
No,
and
no, no, it
yeah.
was not good. It was not good. I don't know where it was being taught, but it was like, oh no, no, no. It needs to be like you need to step back a little bit and have that. sort of sense of wonder. And also, you know, did I forget that Coma Baby had come? Because I frequently say Coma Baby lives. Okay, so apparently I lifted that from Jay McInerney and had completely forgotten.
Oh, that's incredible.
Completely forgotten. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. That like, I kept thinking, oh no, I must have picked it up from a newspaper somewhere, like New York, one of the tabloids or something. Nope, nope, not a friend. Nope, straight up, great, Bright Lights, Big City. I was like, oh,
Oh,
okay.
that's cool when that happens. I don't
It's very,
know.
I mean, it's very funny, but yeah, it is absolutely worth going back and rereading. I just, again, I thought it was going to be sort of super 80s and like, ooh, do I really want? Mm-mm. It's terrific. Okay,
Okay.
so what are you reading now that you're loving? Or what have you read recently, I should say, because you read at a volume that most people do not. Like, you and I read at a similar volume, but what have you been loving?
I loved Susan Choi's new novel,
Hmm.
Flashlight.
Yeah.
Her last one, which won the National Book Award,
Hmm.
was so good and so sparse. And
Hmm.
this is the exact opposite,
Yeah.
that you can like live in this book. There are multiple perspectives. It jumps through time and space, space meaning geography, not
Yeah.
like outer space.
Not Ministry of Time,
Exactly,
but yes.
exactly. And so I'm really loving that, and I also think, like, it's been just a great year for nonfiction,
Hmm.
and, Vohini Vara's book,
Oh,
which, searches
yeah.
selfhood in the digital
Loved,
age.
loved. Also, the Emily Witt, Health and Safety. Oh, Health and Safety. It
Health and
is
safety.
so it's it's surprising in all of the best ways. It's she writes really tightly. I yeah, it's really terrific.
It's one of those things where I love discovering that there's a New York City about which I know
Hmm.
virtually nothing,
Hmm.
and someone's gonna bring it to life
Yeah.
for me.
I know this conversation's been slightly goofy, but I kind of wanted to
No,
do it. I kind of
good.
wanted to do a thing where you and I just got to hang out and be like
Chat.
us at lunch.
I love. That's
Um,
great.
I feel like do you want me to come back to the book before we go and just be like, okay,
Yeah.
obviously you and I can go on for a year and a half.
Yeah.
Because also, I mean, there are going to be people who look at the book and go, eh. And I just want them to be like, no, I want to hang out with that woman. Like, I need this book because I want to hang out with that woman more. And I just kind of feel like I also really love the way you structure the book. I really like,
Thank
I
you.
really wanted to make the conversation about you and how we got here.
I wonder if I
Hmm.
would love to
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
about who I think this book is for.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So you know what? I think we should take this act on the road. Like we really should. But before I do that, you
Yeah.
just came back from the road. You just
Oh
did a
boy,
little
I
tour for
did.
this. And a couple of things I'm wondering because you got to meet your readers
Yes.
in real life, right? And I mean, we occasionally tape the show live in front of an audience, and I love that. I mean, the energy just changed. Like, it's just like everyone's in the same space. So I'm wondering, what have you learned from your readers? Are your readers surprising you? Like, who are you meeting?
I love that my readers are run the gamut in age groups. I had elderly people at my readings. I've had young women. It's been really exciting. And the thing that I I always want to keep in mind that political books often feel like you have to have done the reading and that someone's going to quiz you about Marxism. And if you haven't done all of that, then you don't deserve to have a better future or whatever. And I've been trying to be welcoming and gentle, and I don't think that's something the Bernie Bros are known for. And I think it's been really exciting too, seeing this happen in New York City when a few weeks ago, hundreds of thousands of us who all don't consider themselves far leftists, voted for someone, Zoran Mandami, to perhaps run for mayor and perhaps try to change things. I don't know if he will succeed, but I do love the idea of trying. And I do feel like right now, our Democratic leaders, in particular in the age of Trump, um, are just kind of waiting for him to ruin himself. And I would love to see someone stand up and say, this is unacceptable, that manhandling uh, senators and other government officials is not acceptable. I mean, and that goes far more beyond like ICE in general and what they have been allowed to do. But yeah, just trying. The idea of trying is very much new. One of the new ambitions that I have, that everybody just wants to help each other out, to join up and try to make life better for everyone.
And that's a really nice, hopeful note to end on.
Thank
So
you.
that's where I say, Maris Kreizman, thank you so much for joining us on Poured Over. This was a treat.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Poured Over is a Barnes & Noble production. To help other readers find us, please rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.